Hey guys, Amanda here, today with 5 tips I have for you for backcountry survival. So in the event of any situation in which perhaps you are separated from your primary source of gear, your backpack, or you have an emergency and you're stuck in the backcountry longer than you anticipated. So here we go. Tip number 1, definitely learn how to identify edible and poisonous plants in the area through which you'll be exploring. So where it may not be crucial to know, hundreds of them, definitely the predominant species in your area. And if it helps to take a photo of them or jot some notes down about them and carry those notes with you, definitely do that, because you don't want to mistake one for the other per se. But knowing poisonous and edible plants are important so that if you're on the fence about whether or not a plant might be edible, for example, and you are able to recall a certain poisonous plant that perhaps looks the same, shares some of the same characteristics, just to go ahead and avoid that one. So that's why I say learn both ends of the spectrum, just for a little added measure of safety. So in a survival situation, especially in spring, summer, and fall, where plant life will be plentiful, in winter this may be a little bit more of a challenge, but the goal is to have a consistently available food supply in the case that you run out of food or for whatever reason are unable to access the food that you did have. Say a bear got to it or something, for example. Knowing edible and poisonous plant life is going to be really helpful in a backcountry survival situation. Tip number 2, it's a great idea to make note of water sources that you pass as you're hiking or backpacking through an area. Just really in general, kind of keeping note of those features, whether in your head or even if you jot, down a note. So in a backcountry survival situation, knowing where your closest water source is going to be an added measure of survival and safety. And on that note, always making sure that you have on hand a water filter or purification tablets. And because of the possibility that you could get potentially separated or something happens to, your backpack, your livelihood, keeping a few of those in your pocket or, something that you're going to have on your body at all times can be an added survival tip there. Number 3, you always want to have a backup navigation system. So we talk about this a lot, but this is especially crucial in a survival situation, and specifically keeping it on your body. Or having it in your mind. For example, if you know how to use the stars to navigate at night, like an extra compass that is super lightweight would be something you could stash in your pocket. An extra copy of a map, anything like that will definitely do. And when all else fails, it's a great practice in general to keep track of rivers, paths and game trails, as well as mountain passes if you're hiking through the mountains, because many of these natural features can actually point or lead you to civilization or something recognizable, as much of our society was built upon having access to large water resources or mountain passes, because constructing buildings and civilization on mountain slopes is much more difficult. So keeping track of natural features and knowing where they are in relation to where you are at all times is a great practice, especially when it comes to backcountry survival. Tip number 4, I believe. Yep, number 4. Always have a multi-tool on hand, so on your body, such as in your pocket, for example. Just, in case you're unable to access your primary source of gear, your backpack, typically would be the best example of that. A pocket knife will do, but a multi-tool can be especially useful in a survival situation, just depending on the environment and what you're going to need it for, whether it's stripping bark from trees to start a fire, or repairing a shoelace, or whatever, it is that you may need to do in a survival situation. And finally, the best survival tip of all is to know how to make a fire by friction, or any other creative method that you have resources that are accessible to you. So a couple of the primary methods that I've learned to use and that survival skills classes can instruct you upon are the bow and drill method and also the fire plow method. So 2 different options there that you may want to look into, and if you're interested, go ahead and reach out. I'm happy to maybe even write up a thread on those 2 fire starting methods for backcountry survival. So let's quickly recap here. 5 tips for surviving in the backcountry in emergency situation. Tip number 1, learn the area's edible and poisonous plants and be able to make note of them or have photos of them or keep them in your head, so you always have access to a food source. Number 2, make note of water sources that you pass so that if you encounter an emergency and you're in a survival situation, you can access your closest water source. And on that note, having a few water purification tablets or a filter close on hand will definitely supplement that tip. Always carry a navigation backup, whether it's in your head, how to use the stars for navigation, or an extra compass, or you have your phone on you, for example. Also, it's a great idea to keep track of, rivers, mountain passes, and any paths or game trails that could potentially lead you back to civilization in the event that that's the action that you want to take. Next, always carry a multi-tool on hand, so on your body per se, just in case you get separated from your backpack and that becomes your emergency. So that's going to be just essential for, making a shelter, creating a fire, perhaps repairing whatever gear you do have available to you or on your body. And finally, it's really important to know how to make a friction fire or another creative method for fire starting in case you don't have access to a fire starter. So 2 of these being the bow and drill method and also the fire plow method, which I'm happy to go into details about. But to not make this video any longer, those are 5 backcountry survival tips for you. I'd love to hear if you have any additional tips or if one of these really kind of stood out to you in particular. And as always, your comments and feedback are appreciated. And feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like connecting with other outdoor enthusiasts, you should definitely consider checking out Summit. Summit is a social network that brings together adventure junkies from all around the world to exchange stories, share advice, and inspire each other. You might even make some new friends too. It's kind of like Facebook for outdoorsy people, but with better privacy, no ads, no spam, and tons of extras. You can join Summit by going to summit.theadventurejunkies.com or by clicking the link in the description below. You can find me in Summit too, so be sure to say hi when you join.